people don't understand this either, that several years ago, I think it was 2018, the legislature tackled domestic violence because Louisiana ranked extremely high in domestic violence rates. And they heightened all of the protections. We talked about this with Adam in another video we did on domestic violence arrest. There's a requirement that if they get called out, that they have to make an arrest. That wasn't always the case before. So a lot of this stuff has been, taken more seriously. And regardless of which side of that debate you're on, did we need to take it more seriously, or do we just need to enforce the laws we had back then? It doesn't matter. Right now, they have changed those rules to where there are presumptions as it relates to custody. They added an additional factor related to best interest of a child, and that's if there's been a granted protective order or abuse that
heavily weighted.
Right, is the most important factor.
That's right.
And the one that I think people don't realize at all is they removed the time element.
That's right. They did.
So, you had some fight with her a long, long time ago. Y'all have had years of peace, and y'all decide we're splitting up. She meets with an attorney, and the attorney says, has there ever been any domestic violence? And she says, yeah, 10 years ago, he hit me, or he shoved me, or he pushed me into a wall, or he did X, Y, Z. They put that in an affidavit and file for a protective order. Then this thing's cruising now.
Yeah, it very well could. And, your hope is that obviously the court is still going to apply a level of logic and reasonableness, right? So if this is a one-off minor event that happened 10 years ago with no criminal history, no other complaints, well, then your hope is that the court's going to see it for what it is and deny it. But we're also seeing that not always be the case.
No, and the scary, the scary point is too, like, let's say you go in there, you're the guy that says, hey, what she said, I did that 10 years ago. And I'm gonna trust that the court's gonna get this right. You go in and say, yeah, I did it. They're gonna go, okay, I'm signing this thing.
Right.
And you're done.
That's right.
So again, there are a ton of ways to defend these things. There are tons of ways to prosecute these things. And they have such extreme ramifications.
Absolutely.
That the point of all this, and I know we're two attorneys that work in this area, and we handle these types of cases. So yes, we want people to come to us for these things, but it's also true that it's just extremely important that whether it's you, whether it's me, that you talk to an attorney that knows this area of the law if you're facing this or you've been the victim of domestic violence, because there are huge consequences of these things. And it was specifically the intent of the legislature back in 2018 to go in and go, hey, we want to make all the penalties and we want to make all of the ramifications and consequences way more strict.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on top of that, the legislature also lessened the burden in order to get a protective order. So, everyone's heard in criminal law, beyond a reasonable doubt, that's the burden of proof. It's the highest burden of proof. It's difficult to prove. And we know that's a lot of the reason why victims of sexual assault, sexual violence, domestic abuse sometimes don't report. In family court, this standard has been lessened to something called clear and convincing evidence, which just means, it's more akin to more likely than not.
Right.
So it lessens the burden for the victim of what they have to prove, opening up the court system for relief to them even more than what we've had in the past.
Yeah. So the consequence of that law change was that from pretty much 2019 on, we saw a boom of protective orders.
For a lot of reasons, that being one of them,
Yeah. And so now there are serious advantages and consequences related to your custody case.
Right.
And so if it was a borderline protective order before the law change, and a client came in, we may not file that as a protective order because, oh, look, it's not very recent. There's some time elements here that I think are a problem. Now, oh no. We're gonna, if it's a protective order, we're gonna start it as a protective order because we want to afford our client the most advantages possible in that case.
And the most protection, the quicker that you bring these allegations forward to the court and the quicker that you're able to prove you're in need of protection, the safer your client's gonna be.
Right. So that's kind of an overview of that. Now, we've talked about kind of the process. We've talked about, the ones that those can be confused with. This is one that they should absolutely take extremely serious.
Definitely.
It does mean that you cannot, as soon as that order is in place, as soon as you get served, You can't contact that person. You can't contact anyone that's listed in there, because if it's your wife, or it's your dating partner, and if it's the person you have children with, there's a sub box there and list whether they have listed other protected persons.
Protected persons, that's right. Usually the children.
And that's where the kids will be listed. So it's not just your wife that's filed for this, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, or whatever. It's them on their behalf and on behalf of those children.
That's correct.
So you think, oh, this is just something, that
I don't want to talk to her anyway.
I don't want to talk to her anyway. I'll just go in and agree to it. But then bang, it's an order that says you can't talk to you. You cannot have any contact with your kids. You can't go to their school. You can't go to the ball games. You can't do any of those things that we talked about in our other video, that the other temporary restraining orders under the divorce articles don't prohibit at all. Absolutely. This one does all of that.
Absolutely does.
So it's just more important for someone to take it very seriously. It also, I don't find that when people come in and they're telling me their story about being a victim of abuse, that they're putting on for some sort of pleading to be filed or anything like that. It is normally, when they're describing these situations, they're embarrassed.
Traumatic experience to have to relive.
They're not, and they're looking to us to say, okay, what do we do with this?
Right.
And it's normally us that's saying, all right, your story, it fits this area of the law.
That's right.
And this is how we're going to do it. It's not them coming out, but you do have those situations where somebody else is informed of these advantages. We have seen situations where they've alleged things that are not true. We have seen, unfortunately, some horror stories about people making things up related to sexual abuse or physical abuse. If you find yourself in that situation, you've got to defend yourself
absolutely
vigorously.
Yeah, and while we hope that those situations are so limited, and certainly not the majority of what we come across, what the court comes across, even more important, if you're entirely innocent and the allegations are entirely false, that it gets handled correctly so that none of that is associated with you or your case moving forward.
I love what you said. There's not going to be somebody in court with a sign that says, you sure you want to do this? Because here's all the things that you may be
there's
giving
no warning flag.
all the consequences that may, result from this. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't want to contact her anyway.
Right.
Okay, well.
Do you want to contact your kids?
Yeah, but you don't know what you don't know, which is why it's really important for you to sit down with an attorney, specifically an attorney that has a knowledge base in this, that this is what they do, that they ask them, well, how many of these cases have you tried? How many of these cases have you won?
Absolutely. Yeah, because protective orders, where we go to define the law and all of these things that we're saying there's not a big flashing sign to tell you about. It's not just in the one statute on protective orders, it's everywhere else in the law.
Right.
So if you're meeting with an attorney that may have handled some protective orders but don't primarily practice family law, they might not be aware of those custody implications, or gosh, even spousal support implications, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great point, because if you went in to see a lawyer and he says, okay, well, this is under the Title 46, 2131 et sec. Well, let me pull up those laws and I'll read all of those.
There's a little section.
And they go through all of them and they're like, all right, I got this. That's not where it's written.
That's right.
It's over here in Title 9 and 364 and all these other articles where it says there is a rebuttable presumption that's created as it relates to this. And then you got to go into the 134 factors and go, hey, they added one here that talks about protective orders.
Yeah.
It's got to go to your divorce articles where it says, hey, if there's domestic violence or there's been a protective order, I can get an immediate divorce.
That's
and
right.
so, let's say, for instance, husband claims wife hit him, and he's the breadwinner. He goes and gets an immediate divorce because he got a granted protective order, then she's out of any spousal support.
Yeah, much faster.
Yeah, much faster. And so there's just all of those consequences that, unless you're in it every day, you're not going to know that. And so, I again, obviously, we're a law firm and we want to help as many people as we can, but this isn't a video telling you, hey, you can only talk to us. I think you should talk to us. But you need to talk to somebody if you're facing one of these situations, and you need to make sure that that person knows the area of law that you're facing, because, if you came to me and asked me an immigration question, all right, I've never handled an immigration case. I'm not going to have any idea what I'm doing. And I would tell you, I don't handle immigration. We stay in our lane. But you have some general practice guys that, hey, they've got a potential client now and they want to meet those needs. And so they're going to tiptoe into the waters of something that they don't do.
Particularly because, a lot of protective order practice and filings, they're forms. And so, a lot of practitioners think, well, it's just a form. Yeah, I can handle that.
It's on the Supreme Court's website. I can get a copy of it. Yeah, we can rock and roll with it. No, it's much more serious since 2018, and it's something that we are seeing all the time.
A lot more.
I mean, I would venture to say that our firm has tried more of those in the last year than we've tried any other type of case.
I would agree with that.
And
quickly too.
Yeah.
We're talking within a month, everyone.
Right. And of the 4 attorneys that we have that practice family law, I'd venture to say we've tried more protective order cases than anybody in the parish. I mean, it's a lot of these. And so get with somebody, get with someone quickly. Again, you have to be served within 24 hours. So if you get this, she only filed it the day before. Get immediately to an attorney, tell them it's a protective order when you're calling. If they do this area, they're going to know I got to get this person in quick.
Absolutely
If you call their front desk and say it's a protective order and they say, all right, well, he can see you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, call somewhere else.
They don't know how to, their intake people have not been taught how to deal with protective orders.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Anything else we need to mention about this?
No,
we hit it pretty good.
I feel like we've really hit the high points, and really I would just leave the audience with, like you've kind of addressed very clearly, talk to an attorney. That's what attorneys are here for. Particularly, it's what we're here for. Like Jonathan said, we handle a lot of these cases, but if not us, just speak to somebody. Make sure you understand what it is that you're going to be stepping into the courtroom to talk about.
Don't ever go into court and agree to something that you don't understand everything about.
Right. That's right. Absolutely right. Yeah. And the ripples from that.
Yeah, for sure. The consequences. So. All right. Well, thanks. We appreciate y'all checking us out. Check out the rest of our YouTube page. We have a lot of good information out there on personal injury cases, family law cases, and criminal cases, which is what our firm handles. So thanks a lot. Hey, we appreciate you watching that video. If you have other questions about other legal topics, check out our website, johnsonfirmla.com, or our YouTube page. We put out material all of the time in the areas of family law, personal injury, and criminal defense. We really appreciate you checking us out. Thanks so much.